What's up, everybody? It's the Alex Leak and Friends NFL podcast back for another week. I'm your host, Alex Leak, and we have a special guest on the show, former longtime NFL official, Jim Tunney. Jim, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Alex, my pleasure. Nice to be with you.
Yeah, great to have you on. Now, you were nicknamed the Dean of NFL Referees. You have a long history. Was an NFL official from 1960 to 1990, the first official to be named to the All-Madden Team. You won the Gold Whistle Award in 1992. Officiated 29 playoff games, 10 conference championships, 4 Super Bowls, 5 Pro Bowls, and 25 Monday Night Football games. That's incredible.
You read that very well.
um, and then also officiated some of the most memorable games in NFL history, including the Fog Bowl, the Ice Bowl, the Fumble, the Catch. And still standing to this day, I believe you're the only official in NFL history to do back-to-back Super Bowls.
As a referee, there have been other people in other positions that have had back to back, but I'm the only referee that did back to back. Yeah, and the first to do back to back. Yeah.
That's awesome. Now, starting at the beginning, did you always want to be a referee in sports or in football?
No. I wanted to catch the winning pass in the Super Bowl to be the star.
Yeah.
My talent. I played a little football in college, but my talent wasn't nearly enough to even think about the NFL. So when I was in college, I started refereeing intramural games there, and I like that. And I didn't get paid much for it, but I like doing it. And then when I graduated from Occidental College, I joined the Southern California Football and Basketball Association. I did basketball also, and I just enjoyed it. And I was making $12.50 per game. I thought that was pretty good money in the early 50s. And I'd work maybe 3 games in a weekend. I get maybe $37.50 in addition to my regular job as a teacher and a coach. I thought, well, that's pretty good money.
Yeah.
It's a lot better today, but it was in those days. It was good for me and for my family.
And I believe your father was a referee
He
as well.
was. He officiated high school and college, and I went to games with him when I was about 4, 5, 6, maybe 6 years of age. And he officiated things in the Rose Bowl in Pasadena. We lived near the Rose Bowl, and a guy named Jackie Robinson was playing for Pasadena Junior College. When I was sitting on the bench one time when Jackie was playing, and got to sit alongside of Jackie Robinson.
Wow,
We
that'd
played
be
for Pasadena
incredible.
Junior College.
Did you get to
And
talk to him at all, or?
it's a great honor. Great. Jackie Robinson, of course, was only 19 at the time. He wasn't that well known, of course, but as he got to be older and older, while I was recalling the thrill I got to sit alongside of a kid like Jackie Robinson.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Um, and then so early on in your NFL officiating, so how did you begin get into the NFL officiating?
Well, I was doing the Pac, it was called the Pac 12 now, it was called the Pacific Coast Conference then, and I was refereeing then, and I worked my last year was 1959. I refereed a couple of inter-college, intercollegiate games and intersectional, and uh, I guess they saw me there. I never even applied to the NFL. They called me and asked me if I joined. In
Wow.
1960 was my first year. That was the first year Dallas came in, so they needed more officials. And the next year they were scheduling to have Minnesota Vikings came in 1961, and so they were going to need more officials in 60 and 61. And I was invited along with 9 other guys from all over the country were invited to join the NFL in 1960, but never applied. Just did the job that I was supposed to do in the college, and they recognized it, I guess.
That's a pretty cool something you can say. Like you never even applied to the NFL. They called you.
Yeah, it
That's
was
cool.
that was unfortunate on my part. And I was with the NFL for 31 years. It's been now 62 years I've been associated with the NFL.
Wow.
I loved being part of it.
Such a great game. That's so cool that you have that much time spent in, I mean, the NFL is like my favorite sport. So it's incredible. And to see how big it's grown today.
Yeah,
Um, so I believe in your first NFL game officiating, first maybe and second, you got to meet and talk with the great legendary Bears head coach George Halas.
I did. I was honored. I was a field judge my first few years, and my job was to get the visiting captains from the coach. So I went to Mr. Hallis, never met him before in my life. And I said, Mr. Hallis, my name is Jim Tunney. Oh, yeah, Tunney, yeah, you went to Occidental College and you played football, basketball, and baseball. And you were athlete. He knew me more than I knew him. And what a great honor to meet George Hallis. It's like meeting Thomas Edison. He's the guy who invented the game. You got a chance to stand there and shake hands with him. And of course, during the game, anything that went wrong, he yelled at me and screamed at me. But that's the way it goes. That's part of it.
Yeah. Did you get used to that? The interactions with the head
Yeah,
coaches?
sure. After a while, it just became, they're going to yell at you. You know that something goes wrong that they don't like. They're going to yell and scream and call you names. At first, I thought it was about me,
Yeah.
Tunney. No, I didn't think about that. It was about the uniform I was wearing, the black and white stripe. So they were yelling at all the officials. So I just figured that's part of the game and it didn't bother me. And if it got out of hand, I could shut it down, which I did a couple of times. And but other than that, it was fine for me.
Yeah. Um, yeah, overall, I mean, you had to deal with a ton of head coaches in your time, all those years. For the most part, how were they in general, dealing with most of those coaches?
I think somebody figured out one time in my 31 years, I worked for 300 NFL coaches, and
Wow.
they were all really class people. Yeah, they got mad at me. Don Shula would yell at me, and Madden would yell at me. Tom Landry, Bill Walsh, Chuck Noll. They would all yell when something went wrong, but it was okay. I mean, it's part of the game, and I just did the best job I could. And if they didn't understand something that I was doing, I took the time to go over and explain it to them. John Madden said one time, he said, at least, Sonny, I wrote a book called Impartial Judgment, and John Madden wrote the foreword to it. And he said, in the foreword, he said, I found out that officials could be human. They're real people. And Tony would go over and explain the rule to me. And he said, well, I may not I'm not agreed with him, but he explained it the way it was supposed to be explained. So I took it that way. And
Yeah.
that's why I got along very well with Madden and Shula. And I was just honored to be associated with those kinds of people.
Yeah, that's so cool. Um, and you were nicknamed the Dean of NFL Referees. How did that come to be? And what an honor to have that nickname.
I worked at Super Bowl 11, which was in Pasadena, California, between the Vikings and the Raiders. And the next year, Art McNally called and assigned me to Super Bowl 12. And I said, I worked Super Bowl 11. He said, yeah, but I want you to work Super Bowl 12 too. So back to back, first time a referee ever been assigned back to back games. There's a writer in the LA Times named Bob Oates Jr. And I knew Bob, and he called me and he said, you're working back to back Super Bowls. That's never happened before. And I said, I'm very fortunate. He said, well, I want to do a story on you. I said, well, I can't give you permission. You've got to call Art McNally. We called Art McNally, and McNally said, okay, you can write the story, but you can't publicize it until the day of the game, which was in January. So Bob and I got together. He wrote the story, and then he came out on the day of the game, January 16th, I think it was 1978, 78. So he said, you got to be called the Dean of NFL Referees. He's the one that gave me that title. And
That's
I mean,
cool.
I didn't go all that, but it was nice to say that.
Yeah. Um, now what did it feel like? What did it mean to you to step on the field, like to get that call to do your first Super Bowl, and that feeling of stepping on the field with all those fans, all those eyes on you, to be part of the big game?
It's a great thrill. It's a great honor to be any part of any Super Bowl. And the fact that I worked on four of them is a great honor. But once the ball is kicked off and the first whistle blows, it's just another game. You just work the game, uh, watch what you're supposed to watch. We call them, the officiating, we call them keys. You look at the keys. Me as a referee, I'm looking at the snap from center, from the center to the quarterback, and the handoff from the quarterback to the running back, or whatever, or back to pass. Those are my keys. Those are things I focus on. Those are things I practice. Those are things I work on, and try to get them perfected and do it the correct way, and not miss any calls. And you don't even worry about the fact that there are 103,000 people in Pasadena Rose Bowl, and
Yeah.
100 and so many million watching on television. You forget all about that. Just work the game like it was a Saturday afternoon Sandlot game.
That's very cool. That's gotta be, you have to have that kind of perspective. Otherwise, I could see, people get pretty nervous in that type of environment.
Sure, you do. It's easy to get nervous and lose your perspective.
Yeah. Um, on that note, in today's NFL, you said your job was to watch the line for holding and watch the quarterback, the hits on the quarterback, etc. What do you think on the body weight sack penalty when a defender drives the quarterback into the ground with his body weight? And I that's one of the penalties that I don't like. Like, how's a 300-pound guy supposed to control his weight?
It used to be part of the game, and people I've watched, Montana and Jurgensen and Starbuck and Greasy and all those people, and they would hit him and they wouldn't drive him to the ground, but lay on top of him.
Yeah.
Now they changed that to a 300-pound guy laying on top of a 200-pound quarterback. It's a hard call for a referee to make, because that's a natural thing. As you tackle a guy, you hit him with your shoulder, wrap your arms around him. Where are you going to go? You can't let him go. You got to stay with him all the way. And unless they drive him in the ground, you used that word earlier. If you drive him in the ground, then there's something that you can penalize. But if you happen to lie on top of him during the tackle, I think that's part of the game.
Yeah, I agree. Um, Now let's see here. What did it mean you had an official, Burl Toller, was the first African American NFL official on your staff? What was it like to have him on your crew?
Well, I knew Burrow before he got in the NFL. He was in the Pacific Coast Conference as a head lineman. And about the time I was leaving to go to the NFL, he was coming in. So I knew Burrow. He was also an educator. So we had a lot in common. I was in the school business as a principal. He was in the school business and became a principal. And when he first came in, he was assigned to Norm Schachter. Norm was the dean at that time, was the most experienced official. And this is the first time a black man had been put on an official's uniform. And then after, when Norm Burrow came in our crew for 11 years, so 11 years, every Saturday and Sunday, Burrow Toller and I worked together. And I loved him. He was great. I knew Mel, his first wife, Belvina, and his 6 kids, all of them, Gregory and Susan, and all good friends of mine. Bro and I became very, very close. And I was sort of the protectorate and did a lot of these games that fans would yell at him and call him names that were not kind. And I'd just go over and stand alongside him. Bro, he'd take it. He was a very magnificent man. He understood that he was the first black in there, and there was going to be some people like they did with Jackie Robinson yell at him and scream, and he took it and never said a word. And he unfortunately passed away now, but he was a good official and a finer gentleman. It was wonderful for me to have. Nobody else had 11 years with Roll Solar, but I did, and that
Yeah,
was great. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's a great story on him. Um, and then what did it mean to you to become the first official named to the All-Madden team?
That was quite an honor. I know that John was creating an all offense and all defense, and the thing came out it was an all-Madden team, and I was the first official name to it. That was very nice. I'm sorry John's passed away now, but he and I became good friends off the field. And I did a lot of things. When he retired, I was the speaker at his banquet. When he turned 60, he invited me to become a speaker at his 60th birthday party. And so it was great to be good friends with John Madden. I did all these all-Madden teams. When he started with EA Sports, the first one, he invited me to be the voice of some of the calls, offside, first down, things like that.
That's
So
cool.
we became good friends, and I'm good friends today, even with Joe and Mike, his sons, and his wife Virginia. We stay close.
Yeah, I have so much respect for John Madden. Like as a young fan growing up, with him and Pat Summerall calling the games and their voices, them calling the game, that was football to me, you know. And the Madden football game was so impactful in my life and a lot of kids my age lives.
Yep,
He did so much for the game.
he did. He did. I remember when he retired, and I was at the retirement banquet, and I said to him that night, I said, "You won't stay retired, you'll okay." He said, "No, I'm done." And the
Mhm.
next year, he did the Miller Lite commercial, and he came busting through the fence and yelling and screaming the way John does. And he
Mhm.
said, more people recognize me from the Miller Lite commercial than he did all the 10 years I coached for the Raiders. So he had a good career with those commercials and with the broadcasting. And he and Pat just were terrific. He explained the game to the average fan that nobody nobody up to that point had done as well as John had. And a lot of
Yeah.
people now have copied what he's attempted to do. He did a wonderful job as a broadcaster, as a human being.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, RIP. It was sad to see him go. Um, who are some of your favorite NFL coaches and players to work with and officiate on the field? Like, you know, some great coaches and then some great athletes, players too, that you officiated and got to see right up close them, you know, their legendary play style and all that.
How lucky was I to watch, right from the beginning. Uh, People like Don Meredith, who started with the Cowboys at the time, and then people like Sonny Jurgensen, people don't even think about sometimes, but Roger Staubach and Bob Greasy and Joe Montana and Steve Young, and stand alongside those guys and work on the field with them was just a wonderful honor for me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
As a Bears fan, I got to ask you about like Gale Sayers and Walter Payton, guys like that.
love Walter Payton. They called him Sweetness,
Yeah.
He's such a great guy. Walter had a funny streak in him. When we have a timeout and the huddle was right there, and I would stand next to the huddle, the Bears, he would take his shoe and rub it on the top of my shoe and untie my shoelaces. And the play would start now, and I look down, my shoelace was untied. I look up, and it was Walter who was laughing, joking. So we had a good time on the field. He was a wonderful man to work with on the field. But people, the quarterbacks there, Billy Wade, and all the ones that they had at the Bears was terrific. So
Yeah.
I enjoyed working. Not too fun working in Chicago when it's cold,
Hmm.
particularly when they're playing in Wrigley Field. That was not a fun part to work in because it's so close to the outfield, and the one end was right in the left field bleachers, and so there's only 3 feet between the end of the game, end of the football field and the bleachers. So 3 feet they could throw snowballs at you and dump beer on you, stuff like that. It was interesting.
Yeah. I'm one of those. They're talking about moving the Bears to an indoor stadium, and against that. My first game ever was in the Bears right on Lake Michigan with the snow. and I was like, this is heaven. Like, I don't want to be anywhere else. The snow coming down, you
Yeah,
know.
that's right. And I think for people like Chicago and Detroit, Detroit at one time was the Tiger Stadium, and then they moved it down to the Superdome and all that.
Mhm.
I kind of like it when they're outside like that. The Bears, I like it when they're outside like that. Cleveland is outside. That's a cold stadium.
Yeah, Lambeau.
Yeah, but and Lambeau is outside, and they'll never cover Lambeau. That's an iconic stadium. That's incredible.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I would go along with you. Don't put the Bears inside. Leave them at and they're thinking of doing something with Wrigley Field. Leave them at Soldier Field. It's a big stadium and it's old and all that, but it serves a purpose and it serves a lot of people. And
Yeah, I
they're
believe it's a home field advantage. And the Bills are building a new stadium there in Buffalo. And a lot of people are like, well, if you're going to spend that much money, put it in a dome. And I think it's a fan type thing too. They get excited. They love the elements and they see it as a home field advantage to play in the weather.
I think you're absolutely right. The fans do love it outside like that. It's a it's an outing for them for go to a game in the snow and the cold. That's where they live. That's where they are.
Yeah. Um, Now, the great Art McNally, the father of modern NFL officiating, the first official, will be inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame this year in 2022 at age 96. You have to be happy to see an official finally get in.
I am, and Art's contribution was not so much on the field. He was only on the field for about 8 years, but his contribution in the stadium as a supervisor, as I said earlier, he was my boss for 23 years, and I loved working for him. I've said many times, he is such an honest man that I would play poker over the phone with Art McDowell. He would never cheat you. He would
Yeah.
never lie. He would never tell you anything but the truth. He's not only a great official and a great man, but a really good friend. We've been friends now. He started the league in 1959. I started in 1960. So we've been friends now for 62 years. So he's just a wonderful man. I'm glad to see that they recognize the fact that officiating is a profession, just like playing and coaching are profession, the officiating profession. This is the first time the Pro Football Hall of Fame, as they call it, for NFL officials, NFL players, NFL coaches, now NFL contributors are what officials are, and they make a country. You can't play the game without officials. You got
Yeah.
to have the. You can play with one team, but you can't play without officials. You got to have them, and they have yet to recognize an on-field official, and I hope that they start doing that someday.
Yeah, you got to be next, right? They got to put you in.
I don't know about that, but I enjoyed being part of it, and I encourage the Pro Football Hall of Fame to look at on-field officials and recognize some of the contributions that they've made.
Yeah, they're kind of slow to that sometimes. Like for me, I'm biased, but my favorite returner of all time, Devin Hester, I thought he should have been a first ballot Hall of Famer. And do you remember watching Devin Hester, how incredible he was?
I do, sure,
Yeah.
sure, yeah. I see so many players who haven't been inducted in the Hall of Fame that should be, but they only can take so many in a year. We hope that someday they'll recognize an on-field official.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so looking back on your career, the nickname the Dean of NFL Referees, 1960 to 1990. What do you remember the most, and what do you kind of like? What was your goal to kind of leave behind, like your time spent in the NFL, and what do you want like your legacy to be in that regard?
I think if I were to talk about a legacy, when I left the field, every game, when I walked across the field into the locker room, I said to myself, did I leave this game better than I found it?
Yeah,
If there's any legacy to leave, did I do my job better as well as I could, and did I leave the game better than I found it? If that's the answer, then I've succeeded. That's fine. But I've had a lot of nice things said about me and a lot of nice recognition. But is the game better because I was on the field there for those 500 NFL games that I worked?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think so. I went back, in preparation for this interview, watched the Super Bowls you did and some of the big games, and thought you did a great job. And the game is in a great spot right now and only getting better, in my opinion.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So I appreciate your time. Thanks so much for coming on the show. Jim, it was great to talk some football with you and talk about your great career.
Alex, it's my pleasure, and keep up the good work, and nice to be with you. Thank
Yeah,
you.
absolutely. And have a great one. And I appreciate all the people supporting. And don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, let us know what you think. And have a great week, guys. Thank you, Jim.
Thanks,
And
Alex. Nice to see you. Bye-bye.
yep. And peace out.